For the benefit of our listeners, I welcome you to Galaxy Radio, the only brainwashing station. Can you introduce yourself? You've been quite instrumental, quite active, and held very important positions in this country, the United Kingdom. Can you, let our people know who you are?
Well, I'm Erelu Lola Ayorinde. I've had the privilege of being a past mayor for the London Borough of Wandsworth, and I've also had many different roles in building the communities within the diaspora, especially those from the Yoruba section of the Nigerian population. I am also Erelu Tuwashe of Oderemo, and that's a traditional title, and that places me in a leading position on issues to do with culture, customs, and heritage.
So that means that you're not a Christian or a Muslim. That means you're a traditionalist.
In fact, I have to say I am Yalorisha.
Wow.
I'm an Ifa priestess. We call that Yanifa Kwetebiorumila. And I follow wholeheartedly the ancient ways of my ancestors. Some will refer to me as a spiritualist because of a gift which I've inherited, which has come from many, many generations. It's quite a privilege to be able to have that as well.
Looking back now and looking at where things are at now, what would your comment be, especially with regards to the coming together of various African communities within the UK? And when I say African communities, I include the Africans from the Caribbean or South America who are now living in this country. How would you assess the progress that has been made? Or if there's no progress, say so.
We've had tremendous progress. I mean, I have been in the country for about 45 years, roughly. Mm-hmm. And certainly in the last 20 years, I would say, more so maybe 10 years, we've seen tremendous learning from each other. I want to focus on those of us who have come straight from Africa, mm-hmm. who came in, unprepared and not fully realizing we ourselves have been victims of the same colonization of who we are. Mm-hmm. So we've been pretty much unaware of that. So coming to United Kingdom, for instance, we've met our brothers and sisters who seem to have been more well aware of what their ancestors went through.
Okay.
And the impact on themselves today. One important thing which has happened in the last 5 years is understanding that those of us who felt we were left back home, we've not back in Africa, fully appreciated that we've been enslaved. We're still enslaved. We still are enslaved.
Okay.
And that's been quite a blow to many of us. We've been enslaved. Our priority seems to be for everything that is foreign. Mm-hmm. Most of us have moved away from the customs, traditions, and what really is what our being is all about. We seem to have had ourselves totally, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally enslaved. And the sad reality is that it has happened without being taken away. So basically, what most of us have come to terms with is those who were taken away and those of us left behind. We've been in the same situation all along. Whether leaving us back out there, in fact, seem to have placed us in a worse off situation to those who were taken away. Because those who were taken away, I think that experience made them more conscious. We have been pretending that all has been well. For instance, our language is now becoming almost extinct.
Excellent, yeah.
We look down on our spirituality. We look down on our clothes. We look down on our food. I mean, the other day, somebody was talking about celebrating Halloween in Yoruba land. Halloween. And when we have the masquerade.
The same way that, a lot of African people are now probably preparing for celebrating Valentine's Day.
And when we have our own egungun, or we have our own Eyo, or we have our own Osun festival, or we have our own knowledge of, majority are not interested. Not interested. The sad reality is that our own kith and kins who have accepted foreign religion, they stand on the pulpit and condemn our ancestors and condemn our ways of life. And so we have become, our communities out there have been divided into two. And the harassment, those of us who uphold our tradition, our clothes, our beliefs, the harassment we go through. And no one seems to feel they want to do anything about it.
Some of this harassment, I guess, harassment that you get actually from people back home, living back home, who are supposed to be upholding the tradition.
I'm saying on ground.
Okay.
The same thing that those who were taken away had. The same thing. The first thing they tried to take away from them was their language, and so on and so forth. We, on ground, had that, but those who are now perpetrating that, they are not the colonials themselves, our own kind, telling us. I mean, for instance, most people would rather eat noodles. They would rather eat potato. I mean, the other day somebody was telling me they were going to go and buy chicken and chips. Yes? We have, on our own ground, become foreign to that land. And that puts the heritage of our ancestors totally at risk. Totally at risk. Most of our children are out there. They don't want to speak the language anymore. Most of our children, they don't have the usual games we used to have when we were children. Most of them cannot read or write in Yoruba. Most of them know nothing about Yoruba spirituality. Absolutely nothing. And when you go to those who are meant to be the custodians of all of this, the sad reality is that they themselves, they've gone too far away from it, because it is confidence in practicing this that would have helped them to preserve. So we are faced with the issue of preservation. And preservation, the agenda means ensuring we are preserving the truth. Because a lot of corruption has been introduced into our tradition. I mean, for instance, the word Orisha. For many, many years, people will write in the book, gods. Yorubas don't have gods. Our only God is Olodumare. The Orishas are our ancestors that played meaningful roles in our life, that seems to have left us with a legacy on the basis on which we say...
Venerated ancestors.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, we are told they are gods, and therefore we are seen as idol worshippers. We don't have idols. We don't have any idols.
We have icons.
Simple. So these are, and over years, our own educated Yorubas have accepted the use of the word gods. So we have been set against each other on our own land. I would say that puts us more at risk than those who were taken away.
One of the main reasons for bringing you on board the mothership is for you to promote a forthcoming event to do with Yoruba Day and Oduduwa Day, and also the visit of the Ooni of Ife. Can we, starting with the Yoruba Day stroke Oduduwa Day, what's that day all about?
Well, the Yoruba Day will be the first time we would have a royal father, the father of all Yorubas, our spiritual leader, the Ooni Irisha, His Royal Majesty, Oba Adéyeyè Enitan Ògúnwùsì Òjàjà II, the new Ooni. That's the royal father who occupies the throne in Ile-Ife. Most people say Ile-Ife, it's actually Ile-Ife. Again, that's an interesting thing, because for many, many years, we've all been calling it Ile-Ife, but in actual fact, it's Ile-Ife. He's coming as a head of state to join other heads of state. First, to mark the usual Commonwealth celebrations. Two, he's also coming to see us, since he's actually come onto the throne of our ancestor Oduduwa, the progenitor of the Yoruba nation. So we are going to use the Yoruba Day to focus on what has been very crucial, but we've never had time to address it outside of Yoruba land. That is the unity of our people. Unity amongst all those who can trace their origin to Ile-Ife. Our royal father, Ooni, is very clear that all people of color, that we all...
Yeah, black people.
Yes, we all, Adulawo, I would rather say, that's the word, Adulawo, that Adulawo people, we all originated from Ile-Ife. And Ile-Ife is our spiritual home. Ile-Ife is where we will always find comfort. And it's the land of our ancestors. And it is now opening up the place so that we all can feel proud to come back home, either permanently or temporarily. First, for the spiritual, much desired spiritual retreat. Yoruba people are spiritual people, extremely spiritual people. So the spirituality of our heritage, he's facilitating in line with the ways of our ancestors. So he's coming here to see us. We will use the Yoruba Day on the 24th of March to listen to him, tell us how he wishes us to uphold that unity. And we'll be seeking his wisdom as our royal father to direct the way in which we should conduct ourselves on this very important issue of coming together of the spirit and the minds and the physical of the Adulawo people worldwide.
Tell us more about the new Ooni of Ife.
Well, the Ooni, the story of his birth tells us that prior to his mother conceiving him, Ifa was routinely consulted by his grandfather. Ifa, the voice of Olodumare, the way historically ancient days has been the way of Yoruba. We don't do anything. In those days, we never did. And people like myself don't do anything without hearing the voice of Olodumare. That difference between ourselves and Christians, if I can say, or Muslims, or other foreign religion is, while some will go to church and pray, they pray to communicate with God, to ask for something. We Yorubas, we will ask God if what ask God, what is the plan? That's the way we go about it. We don't say, God, give me this. We'll say,
and we'll ask the Creator through the Ifa oracle.
That's the oracle. So we would. I also need to make it quite clear that the first of our ancestors who has left us this legacy of Ifa, Orunmila, he heard the voice of Olodumare directly. When he heard the voice of Olodumare, it was on that basis he was able to document that the 16 Odu-Ifa, the oracles, which is now 256 today, but he heard the voice of Olodumare. Mm-hmm. And by hearing the voice of Olodumare, he has been able to leave us a documentation which contradicts the fact that we're never able to read or write or didn't know what we were doing in those days. So what he heard, just like Jesus or Muhammad documented their own encounters, or Moses documented, if he ever existed, whatever the Bible is based on.
Existed. That's a key word.
So whatever they documented, I mean, if you read the Bible today, you'll hear on this day of that, on that. If it's the Quran, the same thing. So we, the Odu Ifas, or the oracles of Ifa, represent the documentation of Orunmila. So based on that, we organize our life. So to repeat, we ask God to direct us. We don't ask God to give us. There's a difference. I think I want to emphasize that. We don't go to God and say, please, I want money. Why don't you please give me money? And we don't ask for God's plan for our life. We go through Ifa to Olodumare.
Because you would have had the plan when you were born anyway, when you do it because the way.
That's it. We go to Olodumare to ask Olodumare about the plans that Olodumare has for us. Some people are privileged to have been able to have what we call Esentaye or Akosenjaye, to have consultation with Ifa when they were born, to have revealed to them their purpose in life and the journey of life. Those who haven't and are following the path of Ifa, it's procedural and customary for us never to say to God, give me, or I want. We go to God and say, I'm about to do this. Do you agree, God, or don't you agree? So if we need money, for instance, we'll be saying to God, I want money, but God, you agree that I should have money or not. So the way we relate to Olodumare through Ifa, we clearly believe it's only the plan that Olodumare has for us, which we can make use of.
You're saying all this in relation to the new Ooni.
Yes, thing Ooni, that Ooni, it was revealed before he was born that on such and such a date, a male child will be born. And that was exactly what happened. So he's a very spiritual individual. And since he's ascended the throne, he has been refurbishing and he's returned to those important sites of our ancestors who did a lot for us in the past, and without whom we would not be who we are. So it's gone back to all their sites. A major one is to actually reposition Moremi.
Who is Moremi?
Right. Moremi was the female who basically, when Ife was experiencing war, intertribal war, every night they used to, the enemies used to come and raid the people, and they used to come as masquerades. And they thought they were people from heaven. So they would come and the Ife people will run away. But eventually, Moremi, the wife of the incumbent king at that time, decided he wanted to find out more about the enemies. So she allowed She wanted to find out more, so she allowed herself to be caught by the enemies. And so she was taken away. Beautiful woman. The leader of the enemies fell in love with her, and by so doing, she was able to get the secret of these creatures that used to come as if they were spirits from heaven.
Oh, so even though she was on a mindset of getting the secret, she still allowed herself to be married into this
She had to.
enemy.
Yes,
Okay.
she had to. She planned that she would be caught. But before she actually did that, she consulted the oracle, and she also promised the river that whatever happened.
Well, the deity of that river.
Yes. I would use the word very carefully.
Okay.
I will use the word, I will say, consulted that river itself.
Oh, okay.
Because the river itself, to us, is a living being.
Okay.
It's a living being.
Okay.
Right? In everything, there is life. So she consulted, she went to the river, and she said to the river, you know, our ancestors, they appreciated that life in everything, in trees, in the wind, wherever, whatever they saw, they realized that within that there is a life. So Moremi went to the river, Esimiri River, and said to Esimiri River, dear river, well, I want to do this, and if I go and come back, I shall give you the first thing that I come across when I return. So Moremi didn't know what that would be. So Moremi only had one son. So unfortunately, when Moremi went and she was caught, and she then got herself involved with the leader, and they fell in love, and then she found out the secrets, and she again escaped. As she escaped back into the town, sadly, the first person was her son.
The first person that she saw when she came back.
Yes. So, and then she didn't know what to do. So, in any case, she decided, okay, she will sacrifice as many goats and hens, and she kept sacrificing. Unfortunately, the river began to overflow the whole of the land. So they had to consult Ifa to find out what was happening. And Ifa said, somebody promised to do something, and the person hadn't fulfilled that promise. So, and she then owned up. So her son, her only son, was actually handed over to the river. So she's seen as a heroine, you see. So she is now occupying a very prominent.
So that shrine has now been, her memory has been re-enshrined. Because I remember there was, she used to have something somewhere which one of the governor uprooted or something like that. I don't know. I mean, there's something I heard where they had the statue of Moremi somewhere, and one of the governors.
I want to clarify this.
Okay. Please.
When we have statue, any statue, we don't offer statue anything.
Okay.
So we placed Moremi statue in front of the palace of Ooni.
Okay.
Right. But not well positioned.
Oh, okay.
And because that wasn't where she lived when she was alive.
So
when the current Ooni came onto the throne, he looked at the archive of information. He looked at the archive of the information, and the archive revealed exactly where Moremi, being the queen then, where she was living, the quarters where she spent her life. So what the Ooni has done now is to now place a statue to show the importance of her in the heritage of our great nation. So it's not a shrine. We don't go and offer her anything. In fact, when you get there, it's a statue of liberty.
Oh, okay.
It's a statue, and we are convinced that what is the Statue of Liberty must have originated from Ife. She's now standing tall. I mean, if you look at the Statue of Liberty, in United States and you...
Which was a black woman.
Exactly.
Which was a black woman. People don't know that.
So at the end of the day, Moremi is exactly our statue of liberty now. So it's not a shrine. Yorubas don't have any image in anywhere called shrine. What we call shrine is equivalent of the resting place, the point of contact with our ancestors.
Like an altar.
That's it.
Like an open altar.
That is it. Nothing. They talk about Shango, that there is a stone. We recreate the life of our ancestors. We recreate their life. What was important to them. That's not necessarily saying what is there is what we believe is themselves. But we have, just like if you go to many graveyards, most people go to the grave of their loved ones as that place where they can feel they are communicating. So Yorubas believe there is life after death. We don't believe there is death. We believe very clearly that we transform. So we still keep in touch with our ancestors. That's why in those days we'll even bury. We don't have graves. We'll bury inside the room. Because we want our loved ones to remain part of every activity. So back to Ooni, our royal father Ooni has now revisited all the ancestral locations within Ile-Ife, or Ile-Ife now, again Ile-Ife, trying to ensure that all the Adulawos, those of us who we call black people, Adulawo, we will be able to visit all those points and see their importance whenever we feel we want to reconnect with our ancestors. So those locations are reconnection points for us. It's points of reconnection. Just as somebody can go to somebody else's, one's father's grave or one's mother's grave. So Ooni is playing the customary spiritual leadership. So he's a spiritual leader. And the equivalent, shall I say, those who take in the cue, the Pope of Rome. And in the United Kingdom, as we know, the Queen is the head of the Church of England. So Ooni is the same level as the two, the monarch, the father of all monarchs.
And you think he's going in the right direction?
Pretty much so. He is very clear that our heritage must be preserved. And he is already preserving them. He's already doing that. He's actually ensuring that they are prominent in places where they should be. So he's also working towards, he's trying to promote tourism. He wants people from all over the world to come and see what we've got, to know the truth about who we are, and compare what they can see with what they have read.
I mean, talking about tourism, there was a clip I played on this program some months back about a group of Brazilian women, very, very poor women, because it took them quite a while to, carry out the project. They knew that ancestrally they came from Yoruba land.
Yes.
And being poor, what they did was give themselves, I can't remember precisely if they gave themselves 5 years or 10 years to save up, to take that, in their mind, it was a pilgrimage to, their motherland. And according to the story, they were supposed to be there for 10 days. And on the first day of getting there, to start with, the welcoming that they got was a bit very, very disappointing, because people didn't see them in the light of how they saw themselves. Because, they saw themselves as people who have been disconnected from their land for a very long time. They saw their land, they saw their journey as a pilgrimage. It took them 10 years to save up the money to make that movement. But when they got to where they were going, people didn't know who they are. People didn't know anything about their story. And Then they were taken to see a king. And this is a Yoruba king, And the only thing that the Yoruba king had to talk to them about was the Bible. Then I think they took them somewhere else again. And, by the third day or the fourth day, they just thought to themselves, this is rubbish. And they cut their 10-day pilgrimage short and went back to Brazil. I think they spent about 5 days in Nigeria or less. In light of that, how do you think our father, the Royal Highness, sees the Africans outside? Do they see them as tourists, people who can bring hard currency back to the land to make the land rich? Or would they see them as our lost people that needs to be reconnected to their source? And you can probably, mix in, your journey to Brazil and, how that, opened your mind to the fact that, the Yoruba people who are taken out are still Yorubas.
The first thing I need to say is that just even listening to you talk about the experience of the Brazilian who saved up and wanted to visit the land of her ancestor. I must say I heard that story once before. But the most important thing is that I also was invited to come and give a talk at a gathering of African-Caribbeans here some time back. And after my talk, a lady came to me and told me that she had saved money to learn Yoruba here. Mm-hmm. And she thought she wasn't learning it fast enough, so she decided to go and spend 3 months back in Yoruba land. Yeah. And she said she came back almost in need of antidepressant because she was quite shocked because the people were not speaking Yoruba to her. They didn't see her as one. And they were not speaking Yoruba themselves. So it came to her as a shock. She also cut short her trip. Coming back to Brazilians, my great-great-grandfather, a descendant of the person everybody calls Shango, whose name is actually Telaoko, which is why our Oriki, which is what you can call that recitation of what my ancestors would call their own story of who they are. That's why we are known as Okorese Omo Wuyira, because Oko was a seat of Oramiyo, which was meant to go to Ajaka and Tela. I mean, the person that everybody calls Shango today is Telaogo. So he came from that ancestry. And he actually was a Babalawo. He was an Ifa priest. So he was a royal. So in those days, a royal of Oyo, they were the ones who were identified by the Portuguese to be the only way they could do anything with Oyo in those days. So the Portuguese then used to recruit from Oyo to go to Bahia. It was Bahia. One of the royal females, Yananso, was the one who recruited my great-great-grandfather because there was a need to go and get them to continue learning about Ifa, to continue the Yoruba spirituality, and also because those who were taken needed Babalawo.
Okay.
He was a Babalawo.
Okay.
So that was how he first got involved. Now, when I was young, I grew up in a compound where every morning when I woke up, I would hear the bata drumming. We had the gungun every in our compound, Oshun, Ifa, Yemoja, Ogun, everything. Basically, a temple. Our compound was simply a royal temple. So I knew very well we had connection with Brazil, but I never really knew the full details until my late uncle used to be the one that was communicating. We simply knew that we had some people there. I didn't quite know the detail until when he passed away. Before he passed away, as he was dying, he asked me to promise, because he had been wanting me to come and visit, but it was the peak of my political career, so I could not get time to go. So, but when he was dying, he told me I should promise him to go to Brazil. So I said I would do. But the only thing was, he did not actually give me any address. So what then happened was that I contacted the Brazilian embassy in Lagos. I mean, I thought I needed to keep my promise. So when I contacted the Brazilian embassy, they were delighted. So as they were to facilitate. But when they contacted Brazil to find out, Bahia, to find out if those who were to meet me out there would be ready, suddenly they told them that they had been trying to contact somebody in the family because the oldest female of our family, who was, they call her Regina, Damazia Regina Gbangbush, very prominent in Yalorisha, very well known.
This is in Brazil?
But yes, in Rio. In Rio.
Oh, Rio, okay.
Rio. So the University of Rio wanted somebody to open the exhibition in her memory. So, of course, it just happened. So I decided that was the right time to go. I didn't really appreciate that they were blood. So they asked me for my photograph. Simply said, "Don't worry, when you see me, you know." I said, when you meet me, you will know me, because I normally wear Yoruba outfit. So, but for years, it just happened suddenly. I've always worn white. So in any case, when I arrived in Rio, I saw a sea of people wearing white. They were shocked, as I was, because there I was standing, all dressed from head to toe in white, and this sea. And one of them looked exactly like me, those who came. And it was very difficult to understand. So in any case, they started introducing themselves. This one says, my cousin. I was thinking, cousin? You? In any case, they received me, was the whole congregation of Orisha people who received me. And the way they received me, I just could not believe. So in any case, the government of Brazil had an American researcher who had been doing research for years about my family, because they've been wondering if the Yoruba side, any of us, still reflects what they know in Bahia and Rio. So they were fascinated. So in any case, the long short of it is, the man I'm referring to, my great-great-grandfather, who was taken out there as a Babalawo, had 3 children in Bahia, 3 children. And he took them, ages 9, 7, and 5, back to Yoruba land. And he was going backwards and forward. But the first daughter, when she married and had a son, she decided to return back to Bahia. So that's the generation. Then the shock for me was that when I asked to see the grave of my ancestor, he was a Babalawo, they told me they needed, because he's a tourist in a church. And I thought, Babalawo in a church? But when I entered there, it was so emotional, because the church is full of all the blacks who had ever made a difference during the slave trade. Ever. The entire church is full of statue of all these black heroes. So they took me to, when I got there, I discovered that they could speak Yoruba to me. And they took me to our family compound there near the Ogun. I said to one of them, bring the palm oil. So I said, I don't speak Portuguese, I said, palm oil. Ha! They were looking at me, palm oil. Even the one that could speak English, I said palm oil. She didn't know anything palm oil. So I picked my phone and I Googled palm oil and I showed it to them. And they said, Epo pupa. Epo pupa. So everything to do with Orisha, Yoruba names, the Yoruba words, everything. Obi is Obi. Epo pupa is Epo pupa. Orogbo is Orogbo. Ha! I was so shocked. So I said, you know Epo pupa? And I discovered that they had preserved everything, including every item my great-great-grandfather took to that area in 1726. Everything. The Oloata. Then interacting with them, you would see, apart from the way they dress, which is obviously Portuguese, but a lot of what we've lost back in Yoruba land, they still have. Then I met my cousin, who is again a big Babo Lorisha. When he took me to his temple, every room luxuriously done, the one for a total contrast to what we have in Yoruba land.
I experienced the same thing when I went to Cuba. I mean, they really spend time, efforts.
The Obatala room, the Oshun room, the Shango room, and the followers even had their quarters, all dressed in white. Then I became emotional because I have been trying for years to explain why all of a sudden I just could no longer wear colors. Nobody had ever told me. So the importance of my experience in Brazil, if I progress that, I also discover that the reason why they received me the way they did was because they saw it as a reconnection. So anytime somebody from Africa, they come in contact with that person, that reconnection is powerful for them. It makes it real that they came from Africa.
And is that connection reciprocated in Yoruba land itself when they come over?
But I have told you that I went there, I was totally shocked. They all wanted, they took me around, the people came, they kept coming to visit. They had it to them. In fact, any one of them who leaves Bahia or Rio to come to anywhere in Yoruba land, even for 1 week, they attain a much higher status when they get back. It's like those Muslims in Yoruba, when they go to Mecca, they become they get to a higher status. And the other thing that shocked me was how on the streets they still cooked. For the first time, I became aware that we were not cooking with groundnut oil before. We were cooking mostly with palm oil. You know, their food, I had the privilege of talking to them. They retained. Do you know, it was when I got there, I discovered that whereas in some parts of Yoruba land, they will say the food of Shango is a wedu and amala. They use orula, which is what it's supposed to be. Because
what's orula?
Orula is ila, the okra.
Okay.
Yes, okra. But over years, the people in Yoruba land, they would tell you amala and wedu. And when I came out of Brazil, I had to go and trace oko. The reason why Tela Oko we would offer him the Shango, Orunla, is because it's the only place that produces Ila. Is the major crop of Oko.
Okay.
You know, we have to give our Orisha. What our Orisha never ate when they were not alive, they can't eat it. For the first time too, I was able to join them for the celebration of Shango, celebration of Oshala or Batala, then Orisha Oginyo. I knew when I was young that our family, we don't eat new yam unless something is done. Everything that I saw in our family compound that I didn't quite understand, when I got to my people there, the young ones knew it. The old women, they knew it. Everybody. They cannot communicate well in Yoruba, but every prayer they will say. I was shocked when one of them wanted to start a ceremony and said, now the words, I know the words, they were singing the words, but not quite like this. So I listened and I said, whoa. So I started to sing it with them. Oh, they said, do I know it? There are so many songs, Orisha songs of the past that we have lost, which they have held on to. So the point is, if we need them more than they need us.
Wow.
The reason is that the ancient things they have held on to because they needed to hold on to their own identity. We, on our own soil, foreign religious ideology seems to have taken all of that away from us. So even those who have held on to what we claim is ours, which takes me to the monarchs you are talking about, why most of them are Christians or Muslims. Because the traditionalists have failed to inculcate. They failed to share, which takes me to two practices in Yoruba land. Secrecy and confidentiality. Two are not the same. What used to be confidentiality, we have turned it to secrecy.
Okay.
And because we've turned it to secrecy, most people are not able to set aside secrecy in order to achieve confidentiality. So all the secrets, as they say in Yoruba land, Oshata Bambo, Tafilomo Lowo, Oshano Makpauni. Whatever we follow, whichever ancestral way we follow, if we don't wholeheartedly share,
if we don't have an institution to pass on that knowledge,
it will disappear. So that's the problem. The other thing which seems to have happened to our monarchy, in the past, we had no succession. We had no succession policy. The white man came and introduced succession. In the past, that if a throne is vacant, we will consult Ifa, and Ifa may say, on such and such a day, somebody is going to walk in, and the person is the king. Or we say, oh, you have to go on a journey to God knows where, and you go and bring the person. That's what we used to have. But the white man introduced succession. Even when the white man introduced succession, we then arrive at a situation where only a child born when a man is on the throne, when a king is on a throne, that is the only prince who will be eligible. Ooni Kolomoba. That is any child born to a prince is not the child of a king.
Okay.
So the institution adopted that, but it's been very difficult to maintain. See, the other thing is that the colonials tried to record in the archives what they observe But we have failed to give them information because of this secrecy. And maybe the secrecy was in order. Who knows? But at the end of the day, the monarchs, most of them, normally they wouldn't have dreamt they're going to be king. Because the procedure now is when there is a vacancy, the family whose turn it is will be told to just produce Omoye. And when they produce the consult Ifa, you see, that's not used to be the way. What it should be is to ask Ifa if that family should
be the one that is coming on board.
Should present. They don't. So you can see also when the traditionalists, they will go and choose somebody they know is a practicing Christian, or they'll go and choose somebody who they know is a Muslim. So when you put the name of a Muslim before Ifa, and Ifa then says yes, are you surprised that the person will tell you he's going to be a Muslim? It's the same with the Christian. You see, the way in which we are practicing our own way of relating to Olodumare has changed. As I said in the past, when there's a vacancy, even if there's a family that's supposed to succeed, we should say to Ifa, please tell us, is this family the family you want to put somebody forward? And we get yes. It's not, we've got the Omoye, we've got the king-elect. So just tell us because what we tend to do is to ask how the time will be. So what we are getting in Yoruba land is about what you put in, you get. In and out. So we are putting in those with foreign belief system. And so when they get there, they're going to become promoters of, most of them have turned to be evangelists, some of the Christian ones. I mean, for instance, I was looking at this, it's about Ogboni and Oshugbo. Now, Ogboni and Oshugbo, I get annoyed when people say Ogboni and Oshugbo, they are cult. We don't have the language cult. There is no equivalent in Yoruba language. The Ogboni and Oshugbo, they are the parliament of our people. They are the senators. They were the legislators. And the reason why they exist together in a way that has been structured with somebody, some will say, they are a secret society. They are those who bond based on an oath, which keeps them relating to each other, and it holds them to serve Olodumare.
Which is the same thing you will get in any governmental position in anywhere in the world.
That is it.
Okay.
And it's not, historically, it was not a society people join. It's not a society people join. Each Oshugbo or Ogboni, they are town-based. They are based in towns. And each seat is assigned to prominent families or families with history of having been party to the establishment of that area. So you cannot, it wasn't a society for anybody to join. So today, it's not a society. Now, apart from there are places in Ijebuland, you cannot join Oshugbo, right? Now, Ogboni, since we have something like Reformed Ogboni Fraternity, for instance, which was started by a Christian when the Yorubas were having problems with the Church of England, the Anglican Communion, and they set up equivalent of a Freemason. And that's got a lot of members now. So the Oshugbo, Ogboni, not for outsiders. You know, now we even have Igbos joining Oshugbo, joining Ogboni. Now, and again, it tends to be society for people looking for help. For instance, in England, You get many people who got problems, housing or immigration. They go and join Ogboni. They go and, because they think there's power. But this is one area of an example. We need to educate our people. Ogboni is the government. Is the government of our nations. Now, that government, nobody goes there to benefit. So, whereas now, Ogboni, Oshugbo, they are going there because they want to better themselves. So, Ogboni Oshugbo established for Yorubas, for those who serve community. They are the government which the king is answerable to.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. You see, they are not answerable. They represent the people. They are the government of the people. And the government of the people puts in that king. So, if there's anybody who can tell the king to abdicate, in the olden days, the person will have to kill himself, is the Ogboni and the Oshugbo. But now, that's been bastardized.
I think it was partly to do with foul play from the colonial British government anyway, from some of the research I did. Because, I mean, I remember reading something somewhere, I can't remember now, where the British were frustrated with the fact that anytime they tried to get a Yoruba king to do something, there was so much delay because the Yoruba king always said, he has to get permission from his people.
That's true.
And then eventually they then, used their trickery to create a wedge between the Ogbonis and the monarchy, and try and give the monarchy more power so they can go to the monarchy directly and get away with whatever it is they wanted to get away with.
The first thing they did was they introduced salary for the monarchs.
Oh, okay.
You see, this is why often I say the corruption that we have in Nigeria can never leave, because every institution has been bastardized, and we've introduced monetary agenda. Going back to the Ogboni, okay, whatever happened then, now the monarchs we have, they see Ogboni as promoters of evil. Because most of them have never, ever sat down to look at the history of Ogboni. Now, recently in Ile-Ife, we've been talking about having an institution which will really technically be the holder of the information about what it used to be. I think at the moment it's about having an archive of information for what it used to be. It is supposed to be. I think that archive, we hope, of many years from now, who knows, those who want to follow it may be able to have reference point. At the moment, we cannot document what it is now. Many people believe that Ogboni is, I hear people saying we are going to worship. Now, Ogboni is and Oshugbo, we are not worshiping. When they met to discuss matters of interest to that town, to the people, to the government. So we had our own system of government which worked well. We didn't have authoritarians. No. The people were in charge of the king through the Ogboni and the Oshugbo. And you wouldn't get somebody from another town come and be a member of the Oshogbo. It's not possible. So these are simple things we need to rehash and document, and also try and see if we can fit it in the system of government. This is why a lot of Yorubas are talking about, we want to get out of Nigeria. We want to get out because Nigeria is becoming clearly a project. That project is not looking at enabling or facilitating survival of the Hausa people or the Igbo people or Yoruba people.
Any of the indigenous cultures within that
And I'm delighted to use the word, where the uniqueness is a strength, not a weakness, because it's the failure to build those communities which has made it impossible for the federal capital to work. Because when people go there, we deceive ourselves, we say we are one nation, but when they go there, they are going there to try and rake up what they can for their tribe. You see, everybody goes there with the tribal agenda because downstairs, there is underdevelopment of the spirit and the mind. So our Ooni has got a very difficult role to play. Before he came onto the throne, we've had problems that are about the history of Yoruba. We've had problems about the seniority and all of that business. He's been a peacemaker.
Okay.
He's been going around, reaching out. He sees himself, as he should do, as the father of the Yorubas. And he's been trying to do all of that. So when he comes to see us on the 24th of March, we will signpost a future which makes it possible for us to have an annual event to focus on unity. And interestingly enough, I recall having the privilege of taking part in one of the reparation days, which happens in August. I think it's on the 1st of August. And the first time I went, I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed by the experience I had seeing the African really celebrating who their ancestors were.
You're talking about mainly Africans from what on this station we prefer to call Far West Africa, that they call the Caribbean.
In fact, they say there's a word for Caribbean. I'm trying to remember what the meaning is.
I'm not sure if it's authentic, but I think I've heard something in the line of carry us beyond our land.
That's it. I heard it, yes. I have
but we prefer to use the word Far West Africa because it's just on the other side. I mean, we've been going to Far West Africa for over 10,000 years. This is historically, we know, well before Christopher Columbus went there.
Well, at the end of the day, we back in the homeland, we have the same problem. Even the word Yoruba, we are struggling with whether that word
is
Yoruba
authentic or not. Yeah.
We're all in the same position, to be honest. And I think we will gradually evolve to be what we used to be. And that is the role of our Ooni, recapturing the past. Recapturing the past will have to start with us uniting.
Knowing who we are first, and then using that knowledge of who we are to unite.
If we don't try to come to, for instance, the people of the Far West Africa, 1st of August, it's a date. We don't even have that. We don't have that. We have no day, and we have generations of our children born bearing Akindele, this, that. You see, we have that. So at the end of the day, it's very sad that be it those of us who were left homeland and those who went away. Very, very difficult indeed. Or in fact, I'll say same experiences.
Same experience, same people.
Regardless.
Because I mean, as you said, you went over here, you saw, people cooking in the street just like you see in Yoruba land.
Yes, they're cooking.
I remember back in my university days, I remember once I'm seeing there's a musical festival they used to do in Jamaica. I can't remember what it's called now, something fest. Well, I remember one of my colleagues at uni playing the video, but the music wasn't turned on. So I asked him, Errol, where did you get, who gave you this Nigerian music? He said, no, it's not Nigerian. He turned it up. He said, it's Jamaican festival. I said, no, that person looks like so and so that I know in Nigeria. That person looks like so and so. And then it just, goes a long way to, show that we're one people. Well, Erelu, thanks very much for giving us the time to talk to you. I've known you a very long time. And I can say in terms of outlook, you've really impressed me.
Thank you.
With, because we, as you said, on the continent, we were told something totally different. We weren't encouraged to know who our people were. And it's the same way, a lot of my friends from far West Africa.
Did we even know ourselves?
Exactly. It's the same way our friends from far West Africa. Even just the other day, there was a 9-night that they did, and I went to, and I met one of my friends from when I was at Lucian College, Louis. And I remember, back in the days, this was in the late 80s, early 90s, when Louis told me that, when they were growing up in Jamaica, that they told them that Africans live in trees and they swing on trees. That's what they taught them. And they also taught them that Africans hate them, and this is what created the tension.
Well, you see, at the end of the day, the other day I found a king.
Yeah.
In Porto Novo.
Yeah.
And a Yoruba.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him. We talked, and then he said, "By the way, where are you from in Yoruba land?" I said, I have just told you I am Yoruba.
Mm-hmm.
But where? So I gave him my Oriki.
Mm-hmm.
So I then turned to him. I said, "What is your Oriki?" He said, he cannot remember it.
A king.
A king. You see? Because again, let me also say this while we've got a moment. You see, even in Nigeria, the Yorubas that were captured by the Hausa Fulani, we know them today as Igbono. They have been trying to get self-determination to free themselves right till today. Those in Ilori, the Yorubas captured by the Hausa Fulani, they are still trying to free themselves. Let me repeat that. Igbonos, documents. Till yesterday I was talking to one of them. They are caught up the boundary of Oyo and the north. And they are told they are Fulani full stop. But they say they are not. The same thing with those in Ilori. You can see that we are told slavery is over, and we are told we've got freedom. Till today, the people of Igbono, they are from Yoruba land. But they are now part of what is today called Kwara. And so, when you hear Igbono, the only reason the way Ogbo Tiomono, that's the only, they've retained that word, Igbono. But they are seen as Hausa people, Hausa Fulani people. These are we are still trying to rescue the Galas, the Shekiris. The Shekiris too. When we say Modupe, they will say Modaope. We are today the disorganization of our nation.
So you think the Royal Highness is well aware of this and understands the real job that needs to be done in terms of rebuilding a viable and, positive, looking forward Yoruba nation that is ready to rule the world.
You know what I like about him? He's opened his doors. He will welcome every. He said, Ife is the home of all Adulawo. Ife is the home of all Adulawo. And he's determined to prove it with documentation. Ori Olokun, the Germans were telling us it wasn't our own. The Germans.
Okay.
So he's coming here also to look at the archives. A lot of our stuff are here. For instance, a lot of what we have found in our archives, Ori Olokun, for instance, that is very similar to the Benin bronze. Now, when it was found, the Germans tried to tell us that, no, it was not possible to have found it there. So, a lot of our evidence of our history, my view is that, we can recapture all of this if all the Adulawos begin to share the information they've got with Ile-Ife. That is where Ooni comes in. Because you see, some of the information that we need, they've been taken away with our brothers and sisters to God knows where. I told you, the ones that were taken away from my own blood down to Bahia and Rio. You see? So, basically, when I said coming together, if we don't have a day to it's a spiritual thing. A day declared as a day of coming together. Our ancestors. I remember when I went to pour libation for that of 1st of August. And I was invited to come and pour libation from nowhere. And I consulted. I sought the voice of Ifa. What should I take for this libation? Because that was how I was told. So when I consulted, Ifa told me I should take palm oil. So I took a little bottle, I put palm oil there. I said, palm oil for this libation, I took it. So when I got there, the two of us supposed to pour libation, and we were being delayed, and they were looking for gin. They're looking for gin. And they weren't looking for gin, they couldn't find gin. So those who were hosting me, I said, nobody's going to find gin. They wondered because, I'm gifted. I said they won't find the gin. In any case, the person that came back brought a bottle of palm wine. So the person that first did the libation used palm wine. And when I was invited, and as I held the palm oil, I heard the voice from the same tree. Palm oil.
Palm wine.
I was totally overwhelmed by it.
Wow.
Totally overwhelmed, even now.
Wow.
Because I then explained to those around me. I said, do you notice what have just happened? I said, our ancestors have just spoken. When I left my home to come and pour this libation, they told me to bring palm oil. And when I got here, the person was supposed to do the libation was looking for gin. And they only found him palm wine. He poured the palm wine. And as I got there and I got the palm oil, he said, from the same tree. From the same tree.
Yeah, because palm wine comes from the palm tree, and palm oil comes from the palm tree.
That was how our ancestors spoke.
Wow.
Simply saying, we are from the same tree. And so, we need to do a lot more of coming together. We need to do a lot more of forgetting the past. We've done, all of us have done, we've abused each other. Is that the word? We've so much we have done. And we've done it due to lack of understanding.
Yeah.
But it is beginning to happen, and it shall continue to happen.
Ashe.
And I say to all our listeners, Ooni Irisha is the father of all Adulawos. He would welcome every Adulawo. He's determined to welcome every Adulawo, because there is no evidence that any Adulawo could have come from anywhere else.
Yes.
We continue to rally the troops with Ishokon Day. The word Ishokon means unity.
Unity Day.
May that spirit of unity remains with those of us who are here. May it reconnect us all to those back home.
Ashe.
Wherever that home is, be it Guyana, Trinidad, Barbados, Cuba, Jamaica, Bahia, Rio, and of course, Ibadan, Ijebu, and so on. May we come together for one hand cannot clap, only two can. May we be reconnected back.
Ashe. Ashe.
Psychologically,
Ashe.
spiritually,
Ashe.
physically,
Ashe.
and emotionally.
Ashe. Eshegun Amarinba. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
olùkú mi, ìyá mi, bàbá mi, ẹ̀gbọ́n mi, 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 olùkú mi, ìyá mi, bàbá mi, ẹ̀gbọ́n mi. Mo fẹ́ kí gbogbo ọmọ Ọ̀yọ́ ní Matanzas. Mo fẹ́ kí gbogbo ọmọ Àlùbàtà ní Matanzas. Ọmọ Ṣàngó ni wọ́n. Ọmọ Ṣàngó ni wọ́n. Wọ́n sọ fún mi pé Ògún mi bàbá. Olùkú mi, ìyá mi, bàbá mi, ẹ̀gbọ́n mi, olùkú mi, ìyá mi, bàbá mi, ẹ̀gbọ́n mi,